good? Okay.
This work?
Okay.
Sound like it's on.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 20th, 2023 Board of Public Works and Safety meeting. Roll call, please. Here.
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 Are there any conflict of interest statements?
No.
No.
Matters from other department heads or their representatives? I don't see any. Number 5, correspondence. I don't see any. Matters from board members. Either of you have anything?
No, sir.
Number 7, new business. There is none. Number 8, old business. I don't see any. Number 9, rental registration hearings. I don't see any of those either, so we're going to move to number 10, business exception hearing, and we'll start with letter A, Luke's 5105 State Line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, before we get started, let me read this, and then we'll get started. Good morning. The next matter before the board is the request for an exception to Section F of Ordinance 9605, brought by the petitioner, Luke's. The petitioner has requested that the fueling station located at 5105 State Line be excluded from the requirement within the city of Hammond that fueling stations be closed from midnight to 5 a.m. I would like to first determine whether or not proper notice has been given to the neighboring property owners by the petitioner. The requirement is that the petitioner give notice of today's hearing to all properties located within 300 feet of the petitioner's property line. And Linda, did that occur? Yes. Okay, is there anyone other, besides the petitioner to speak for or against the petitioner's request for an exception? You'll be the only one, Mr. Fife?
Yes.
Okay. If you could please do me a favor, raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, as a petitioner, you have the ability to now present to the board your rationale as to why you believe your fueling station should be allowed the exception. As you know, there are several factors in the ordinance that the board will consider and weigh in making the determination, and I would ask you to be aware of those factors and to present your argument and evidence today with those factors in mind. Do you have any evidence that you wish to supply the board or the city?
I do not.
Okay. Then absolutely go ahead, Mr. Fife, with your rationale.
Thank you for allowing me to be here and petition for these 3 remaining sites this morning.
You're welcome.
First off. So as it goes for 5105 State Line Road, that's our Luke gas station 240. As we go down the line, the incident and criminal acts, I'm well aware of the police presence that we've had at that gas station. There have been numerous overtimes, and you know, we manage it the best we can, and we tell our employees to call if they see any loiters or whatnot. Again, we cooperate to the fullest when the police department reaches out to us for any video or whatnot. Are they part of the Fuchsia's program? That was one of the first sites that became part of the Fuchsia's program. Whether or not there's adequate security, usually that's staffed by 2 to 3 employees during the night. We did have a new camera system installed this year with 360 coverage around the whole building, along with panic buttons. At midnight, the store does close, so there's no inside traffic. It's all traffic used by a window for gas purchases. And upgraded our LED lighting, and we have other surrounding buildings that have our camera systems as well. So we have total 360 coverage at that site. As far as whether it's commercial or industrial residential, I would say it's commercial due to the certified letters that I had to send out. There was only about 12 of those, and they were mostly to businesses and LLCs. It's not near an interstate, but it's on the state line, and I would guess to say that most of our customer base are people leaving to and from work, wherever they may go. As far as the violations, there's not any that I'm aware of. Like I said, the adequate lighting is on all 3 buildings that we have there, our liquor store, our car wash, and our gas station, all upgraded with LED lighting. And as far as the license goes, I turned over all of that information over on Tuesday, and then just reinformed that there's some issues with our 500 stores as they're labeled. They used to be 600s, and so I think that's where the discrepancy is coming from the health department, so I'll get with them and correct that as soon as I leave here today. And that's all I have for as far as 5105.
Okay, does the city have any questions of Mr. Fife?
Mr. Fife, good morning.
Good morning.
Could you tell me, there's some confusion about the proper corporate name. We have it as Gateway Triangle Corp., but we also have, maybe it's the ownership of the property, is Lake County Trust number P4295.
That would be the property.
That's the owner of the actual property.
Yes.
Is the operating corporation Gateway Triangle Corp.?
Yes,
All right, and it's DBA Loop 240?
yes,
All right, so one thing that we've discovered is that the Loop 240 is not registered as a DBA with the state. So that's one thing that just, we'd ask that be corrected. You mentioned that, I think you admitted that you agree that it's not near an interstate. This is more of an internal, it's downtown, it's not really close to any interstate. Is that fair?
yes,
All right, and also, would you agree that this station, well, let me back up, I need to lay a proper foundation. Your position with Luke is what, Mr. Fife?
Director of Safety and Security.
All right, so are you familiar with the many stations around the county, including those that operate in Hammond?
Yes,
All right, and would you agree that this station has a much greater call volume from a police standpoint than other stations in Hammond?
yes,
There's a vacant convenience store and like fuel canopy on the south end of the site. Are you familiar with that?
no,
Okay. So, since you don't know, I was just gonna ask whether or not you know whether or not there was a plan for that. That was from our zoning administrator request, but.
okay. Where,
Yeah.
where exactly again?
I guess it's on the south end of the site. There's like a it's probably like on the Morton Court side, I think. It's like, looks like a vacated.
I'm trying to
convenience
picture
store
what they're talking
and fuel
about.
canopy.
Me too.
Cause it used to be. No, that's up north, I think. Oh, is that the north one? Yeah, that's. No, there's a vacant, that's a different issue. Okay. Cause I think the Litco just went in here, right?
Yes,
Okay, and so I thought that before that, there was like a car wash. Is that still operational?
that's still operational, yes. Correct.
All right, well then I might be mistaken about that.
Yeah, that's actually east, a little bit
Oh, it's
east,
east.
than south, yeah.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Fife, you don't have any further evidence or testimony at this time?
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you have no further evidence, I will now let the city present their case regarding the exception. Mr. Smith, you may go ahead.
Okay, good morning to board.
Good morning.
Day 3 this week of gas station exception hearing, so I appreciate the board's dedication to this, and I think it's important both for the gas station owners and the residents of the city that these be heard timely due to the fact that the ordinance is going to go into effect on November 1st. So appreciate your time and efforts in this regard. First, I would present to you Exhibit 1, which I'll give Mr. Fife a copy of. This is the call log of the site. Just in summary, I would indicate that this is, to date, the largest call log that we've had. Some highlights, or I guess they'd probably be lowlights, is that there was a homicide at this location on June 25th of this year that occurred at 2 in the morning. Additionally, since the date of that homicide, there was a weapons offense, there was a robbery, there was a carjacking, there was a resisting, there was a weapon offense, a pursuit, and a criminal recklessness. I can also represent to the board that this is the largest call log that I've presented to the board to date. It really is substantial, I guess is the way I would characterize it. And I would also indicate that there are extra patrols almost every day, and I'll have Sergeant Godey expand on this. But the way I look at extra patrols from a city perspective, and I would go back to the hearing before the council when, is it Lieutenant Item? Mm-hmm. Lieutenant Item testified that you don't see all the police activity necessarily in the reports, but what he did say was that, he has to go to gas stations overnight where there is an increased amount of criminal activity because he just has to check on the place more. And that takes police patrol vehicles out of my neighborhood, out of your neighborhood, and out of any resident's neighborhood because they're busy making sure everything's okay at the gas station. And I would personally prefer that patrol vehicle to be closer to me than worrying about being at the far west end of the city, looking after a gas station who, although I'm not sitting here trying to criticize, Luke's Corporation, but this site in particular seems to be problematic. For whatever reason that is, maybe it's close to, Illinois, where we have a lot of crossover crime. I think anybody that has anything to do with the city knows that a lot of our crime is imported, and that might be part of the problem. So anyway, this is the Exhibit 1 for your review. I would next like to call Sergeant Godey, if I could, to the stand and have him be sworn and ask him some questions.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you will give the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sergeant Godey. Could you please introduce yourself to the board and indicate your position with the Hammond Police Department?
Good morning. My name is Chris Godey. I'm the FUSIS Administrator for the Hammond Police Department.
And Sergeant Godey, are you familiar in your duties as a police officer and administrator of FUSIS with the location at 5105 State Line Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, and as a police officer, you've seen Exhibit 1 that I presented to the board. Do you agree or disagree that this location has an increased amount of criminal activity as related to other gas stations in the city?
I agree.
Okay, what has been your experience regarding the safety and security at this station?
That location just, I think its proximity to Sibley and State Line and, what's closed or not there on the Illinois side causes problems. We'll see stolen cars, carjacked cars, what have you, for whatever reason, try to buy things there or gas up there despite, their best efforts to cover everything with cameras and good lighting. They, for whatever reason, crimes still occur at that location.
Okay, given your experience as a police officer, Sergeant Godey, and the testimony you just gave to this board regarding criminal activity there, and as you characterize it, despite the best efforts of the company, would you say that this gas station presents a safety risk to the city in its operations overnight?
Yes.
Would it be your recommendation, if you were making the decision here today, to deny the exception?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions for Sergeant Godey.
Mr. Fife, do you have any questions for Sergeant Godey? I do. Board, do you have any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Sergeant Godey, would you say that outside of the routine calls like extra patrols, is there a considerable amount of manpower that has to go that way in the event of a major crime or violent crime happening?
Well, as I'm sure the board is aware, if a stolen car enters the city and goes there, we first, to avoid a pursuit, try to block it in. That takes bare minimum 2, probably 3 cars to do. If it doesn't work, it turns into a pursuit, which I'm sure you're well aware is a safety concern with, we never want 1 car by themselves, 2, maybe 3 cars go. A supervisor's now committed. They're outside the city. They almost always flee to Illinois or to Chicago, get on the Bishop Ford. So yes, everything. The extra patrol may take 1 car or 2, but anything else is multiple cars and an evidence technician, a carjacking or a shooting ties up an evidence technician for almost an entire 8-hour shift.
So it leaves everything else uncovered?
Yes.
Everything else is uncovered?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay, we're done for now. Sergeant Godey, thank you.
I would also like to present, I guess, on the topic of safety, Exhibit 5. For the board, this is just an article, and I'm not really representing, any opinion in the article, just the facts. It has to do with the homicide that took place at this station, so it's just really in there to describe what happened. There was an arrest, the facts and what happened and how it happened. So that's also for the record and for the board's review. I'd request that be made part of the record. Next thing I have is exhibit, and I'm going to give you them together because Mr. Novak isn't present, Mr. Farrell is, and he's familiar with both of these.
Mr. Farrell, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear that the testimony we'll give this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Farrell, good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the board and indicate your position with the city?
Yep. Nicholas Farrell, City of Hammond Code Enforcement Commissioner.
And Mr. Farrell, have you had an opportunity to discuss with Tom Novak, the Assistant City Planner, his report that he prepared for the board?
I did.
All right, and you also prepared a report for the board?
Yes.
Okay, at this location, as far as safety concerns go, is it true that some signs, even though they're not blocking more than 25% of the window panes, that some signs combined with shelving do attribute to more than 25% of blocked per pane?
Yes, and of course with the photos that were taken by the Assistant City Planner, Tom Novak, it does indicate that the windows are obstructed from view from the outside due to the combination of signage and shelving.
Okay, and then other than that, would you also agree that it looks like it needs to make sure that they have addresses on the front and rear, and that's always a safety concern for police when they're trying to figure out what address they're at, right?
Yes, they need to make sure they're clear, like size, proportion to the building, so any vehicles that need to identify the property, whether it's police or especially fire, in the event of an emergency, can identify and arrive adequately in time.
All right, and otherwise, the list of the violations or the violations by Mr. Novak are there, have to do with parking and some other, the car wash sign doesn't have a temporary permit, things like that.
Yeah, mostly minor things that can be addressed fairly quickly.
Okay, that's all the question. Oh, I'm sorry. You also gave a report, Exhibit 3, which is backed up by Exhibit 4, regarding the fact that this location does have a valid business license and has maintained one for the better part of 18 years.
Correct, yes, they've had a valid business license, renewing each year. My only concern was, again, the Secretary of State information. The business license is being issued to Luke number 240, which is not registered with the Secretary of State.
As a DBA?
Correct.
Okay.
Gateway Triangle is registered, as well as other Luke labeled business operations, so we would just want to make sure that the license is being issued to an active registered business name. The other thing that I did discover in the research was, there's an outstanding board up from 2022, which I'm sure they could take care of. I didn't see a
What was the
receipt.
amount of that?
The amount of the board up charges were $531.43. I attached an invoice to the report.
Could you make sure that Mr. Fife gets a copy of
Yep,
that?
absolutely.
All right, I have no other questions of Mr. Farrell.
Mr. Fife, do you have any questions for Mr. Farrell? Does the board have any questions for Mr. Farrell?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is the city still presenting, correct?
We're done with our evidence.
You're done with your evidence, okay. Okay, if the city has no further evidence, the petitioner now has the opportunity to present a testimony or evidence in reply. Mr. Fife, if you'd like to, you have up to 5 minutes to make a closing argument.
I'm fine.
You're good?
Yep.
The city?
Yes, thank you. I believe this process has been pretty fair. This is a station that the city strongly believes should not be granted the exception. I think first and foremost, by the way, even though the homicide weighs heavily on everyone, anytime there's a death because of a violent act in the city, I know that from the mayor on down through the police department, that's a situation that nobody wants to have to deal with, and our condolences are always with the family that that has that loss. But looking at this from a city safety standpoint, I think it cannot be denied that even notwithstanding the homicide, this location has a much greater use of police resources and has other violent acts at it that would indicate that kind of this is what the ordinance was made for. The ordinance was made to make sure that the city's safer as a result of closing down areas, gas stations where there is overnight traffic that causes problems. And this is one of those locations. The The Exhibit 1, I think, just says it all. It is a really large volume, so that's the first thing. Secondly, I guess what I would say is that unlike several of the other stations we've seen here, there is no access to an interstate close by. So this isn't something where people are hopping off the highway and have nowhere to go. So I think that also weighs in favor of a denial. I commend Luke. Luke's is a really good corporate citizen, right? Just because I'm requesting denial of this, I'm not trying to disparage Luke or their brand at all. I think they run a good shop, and it's evidenced by the fact that even though, as Mr. Fife indicated, in his best efforts, in their best efforts, they still have criminal activity at this location. They're on fuses, awesome. They have good lighting, great. They've upgraded their camera system. Really couldn't ask much more, right? And by the way, they 2 to 3 employees there. After midnight, you can only do it at the window. By the way, that also indicates to me, even though I applaud that because it's safer for their employees, you have to wonder, like, why was that done? It was done probably because this location, unlike others, creates a greater safety concern for their employees. So that also, I think, favors a denial. It is in a commercial area, it's not residential, very few residences over there. We're obviously hoping for more residences over there, and that's gonna happen in the near future. And maybe in the future, we take another look at this. But for now, I believe, given the factors that I've reviewed, there's really not much ordinance-wise or zoning-wise, and that's again, a positive for Luke's in this area. I believe, though, the factors in the ordinance favor a denial of the license, and I would request a denial on this station. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your presentations today. The board will now take this matter under advisement. The board will notify the petitioner in writing of its ruling by regular, certified, and electronic mail within 10 days of this hearing. If an exception is granted, it shall be valid for 1 year from the date of termination and is subject to revocation if any circumstances change. Additionally, you must reapply for the exception annually if it's granted. Understand, Mr. Fife? Thank you. Okay, we're going to close that one then, and we're going to move on to letter B, which is Luke's at 3550 Sheffield. And I'm sorry if this is repetitive and boring, but we like to follow protocol for each and every gas station. Good morning. The next matter before the board is a request for an exception to Section F of Ordinance 9605 brought by the petitioner, Luke's. Petitioner has requested that the fueling station located at 3550 Sheffield Avenue be excluded from the requirement within the city of Hammond that fueling stations be closed from midnight to 5 a.m. I would like to first determine whether or not proper notice has been given to the neighboring property owners by the petitioner. The requirement is that the petitioner give notice of today's hearing to all properties located within 300 feet of the petitioner's property line. And Linda, did that happen? Yes, October 9th. Thank you. Mr. Fife, will you be again the only one presenting today?
Yes.
Okay. You've already been sworn in. As a petitioner, you have the ability to now present to the board your rationale as to why you believe your fueling station located at 3550 Sheffield Avenue should be allowed the exception. As you know, there are several factors in the ordinance that the board will consider and weigh in making a determination, and I would ask you to be aware of those factors and present your argument and evidence today with those factors in mind. Mr. Fife, if you're ready, you may go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So as far as it goes for 265 located on Sheffield Avenue, as far as criminal acts go, I only have 9 recorded to date. I'm sure there's more on the call sheet. Nearly not, I don't think, as many as 240 goes. That was the second site that was part of the Fuchsias program when you guys started it, that we got up and running. As far as the security goes, we do have 2 employees that work throughout the night. We have a great camera system in place. We have mag locks on the doors that are on our front doors. Our employees are behind glass, and we have adequate lighting with LED. As far as commercial or industrial, I think that would fall in maybe in an industrial area, considering that 12 of the certified letters that I sent out were morally for businesses and LLCs. As far as interstate travel, I think that the access to that station, which does good business at night, is more to and from work travelers, maybe coming from the Hegewisch area or going to the industrial areas that are on Sheffield Avenue. As far as city violations goes towards the ordinance, I have a good relationship with code enforcement, so when they do reach out and notify us of certain issues, we get on that right away. Usually up there, it's mostly high brush or weeds that needs tending to. Again, as far as the adequate lighting goes, that LED lighting, and again, with the licenses, everything was turned over Tuesday, but we'll make the corrections as far as it goes with the health department. And then no other relevant factors on that one.
Thank you. Does the city have any questions for Mr. Fife?
I do. Mr. Fife, this, again, just to clarify, I show Sheffield LLC, is that the owner of the land?
Yes.
But the operating company is Gateway Triangle Corp., DBA Loop 265?
Yes.
Okay. So Boy Scout Road, as we know it, right? Jeff, what's it called, 136 or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, 136th Street / Boy Scout Road, are you familiar with that
Yes.
stretch of travel? Would you agree that it's kind of like a access road for folks that live in Illinois? And does that traffic create a lot of your customers at that location?
Yes.
Right. What about the trailer park that's across the street? Are you familiar with that trailer park?
Yes.
Does that create also customers for that location?
Foot traffic.
Foot traffic, okay.
Yes.
So, and there is a convenience store at this location?
Yeah, there is.
Is it also closed at midnight, or does it stay open all night?
Stays open.
All right, well, do you have any idea on the revenue overnight versus as a percentage of the whole?
I do not have that with me.
You mentioned that there are 2 employees overnight?
Yes.
And are they both behind the glass? I mean, obviously they have to come out for some things, but is their job to be behind the glass all night?
Yes.
Are
And if I may, with the
Please.
mag locks,
Yeah.
they are able to flip the switch from the cage behind the glass, which locks the front doors, so they don't have to physically go out and lock them.
Gotcha.
So, which keeps customers out whenever they're on the floor to clean or whatever they need to do, restock.
Okay, so in other words, when they come out from behind the glass, they flip the mag locks on, therefore they're still secure within that area?
Yes.
All right, and that would occur any time overnight that they do that?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Fife?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir. If you have no further evidence, I will now let the city present their case regarding the exception, and Mr. Smith, you may go ahead.
Yes, I have for the board, exhibit 1, which is the call log, so if Mr. Fife a copy. Give the board a copies. And I call Sergeant Doty back to say he's already been sworn.
Remind everyone that Sergeant Godey's already been sworn in.
Sergeant Doty, are you familiar with the location at 3550 Sheffield Avenue, Luke's gas station?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to review the camera system and security at this location?
Yes.
Could you describe that to the board, please?
Sure. Mr. Fife is correct. It is connected to Fusus. There is a small configuration problem that we're resolving between Fusus and their IT department. But the lighting and cameras are adequate. The bulletproof glass is installed as he indicated it was.
So, Mr. Fife testified as far as the camera system on State Line. I think you described it as an upgraded 360 system.
Yes,
Do you know whether or not this location has that upgraded system?
it does not.
It does not. So, do you believe that the system they have is sufficient to assist the police department, or would you recommend, given your background and expertise, that a different system should be at this location?
I think they have plans to move all the stores to the new system. This one just hasn't been done yet. And, when we talk about 360 degrees around 5105, you can move around the back of it to the car wash and the tobacco smoke shop or whatever. Here you can't. At 3550 behind, you can't go behind there. It's,
Wooded area?
yeah, whatever's back there.
Okay, and as far as like, has the camera system at this location, do you consider it to be important from a police and crime fighting perspective, given its location on 2 main roads?
Yes.
And do you plan to have a discussion with Mr. Fife regarding potentially upgrading the system?
We've already had that discussion. I believe it's, in line with some other things that they've.
Have you had occasion to visit this location to investigate any criminal activity that you needed to access the cameras with?
Yes,
And has Luke's been available and cooperative in that regard?
always.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Cody.
Mr. Fife, do you have any questions for Mr. Godey? I do not. Board?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Godey. My next witness will be Mr. Farrell. I will also give the board copies of exhibits 2, 3, and 4 all at once. I'll give a copy, obviously, to Mr. Fife as well.
Remind everyone that Mr. Farrell's already been sworn in also. Thank you.
Farrell, are you familiar with the location 3550 Sheffield?
I am.
All right, and have you had an opportunity to do your own report as well as speak with Mr. Novak regarding his report?
I have.
All right, could you give a summary as to Mr. Novak or your concerns at this property?
Yeah, it would appear that in regards to the zoning concerns, there was discovered signage is blocking more than 25% of some of the window panes in the area, which creates a concern for visibility. Seeing in behind the clerk's area where the cashiers are in the event of an emergency. ADA signage is needed, as well as some extra striping. There's it appears to be like a driver-created, like apron access to the property, which it was never paved prior, and basically people started using this grassy area as a way to get into the property, into the pumps quicker, which we can discuss either blocking that off or resodding that area.
Is that from the Illinois side, kind of on Boy Scout Road
Yeah,
side?
it's coming from Boy Scout Road
And
to
so
the
is there,
property.
yeah, I'm sorry, is there a concern there that that can create like a much quicker getaway, for lack of a better word, to Illinois? If someone was to use that,
Yeah, absolutely. If the known access points are blocked, this creates, a drive
it's the
where
last photo for
they
the
could
board.
skip around.
It's on the back.
And then just as far as, there's a dumpster enclosure that's needed, the lids were noticed open, which from a code enforcement standpoint, that has really been like the major concern we reach out to Mr. Fife about, the trash and debris. They've always been responsive anytime that we have contacted them in regards to any issues. Even so much as so, dumping was like a major concern. I've reached out to them and have obtained security footage to try to see who's actually doing the dumping behind the building. And in the wooded area, so Luke has went as far as to put concrete pylons along the perimeter of the property to try to prevent access to that wooded area, because vehicles would back up and just unload their trucks with household items, construction debris. Unfortunately, it would appear there was a compromise where somebody was able to move one of the concrete pylons, and now they're getting back into the wooded area.
And an enclosure tends to minimize that kind of activity because it's not out in the open, correct?
Correct, yeah, the dumpsters themselves, to prevent, to mitigate the trash from blowing out of the dumpsters into, being caught around the perimeter of the property where the wooded areas, a 6-foot privacy fence is typically what's installed to keep anything that might blow out of the dumpsters contained at least in that one area.
And it's not as inviting either, is it?
No.
All right, and there's also a container that's been on this property since at least 2011, and those are supposed to be temporary in nature, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, there is a temporary storage container, and I did mention it to Mr. Fife the last time that he was here.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Oh, I'm sorry. Business license is valid. I think you mentioned kind of the same issue, and that I talked to Mr. Fife about already. And but it is a valid business license, and over the last 5 years, there's just been one warning for graffiti and one litter citation.
Yep,
Okay,
that's it.
that's all I have.
Mr. Fife, do you have any questions for Mr. Farrell? I do not. Board, do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Thank you.
That's all we have in the city.
Okay. Hold on here, let me make sure. Yes, okay, at this time, if the city has no further evidence, the petitioner now has the opportunity to present any further testimony. And Mr. Fife, we ask that you would limit it to 5 minutes or less if you wish.
Is this reply or is this closing?
This is closing.
Okay, so no reply?
No reply, no, sorry. You don't, you're good?
I'm good, thank
You're good? Okay, the city has 5 minutes.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, because I guess part of the city, part of my belief for the city is that this station doesn't necessarily need to be open overnight, but at the same time, I can't sit here and say that it's been a huge problem for the police department. I think that the evidence kind of speaks for itself. I would imagine there are a bunch of extra patrols that have to go by here, because it's not like remote, but it's not necessarily like in a real busy area, right? It's kind of right on the cusp of like where North Hammond ends and Robertsdale starts, maybe, I guess, right? It's in this like no man's land in a way. And outside of because it's north of Pulaski Park, where there's single-family homes. It's across from the trailer park. There's 2 trailer parks actually near there. And it's also right along Boy Scout Road, which has in the past been a problem. It's been a getaway road, but it also, when the mayor did a survey, we all thought that it was going to come back like close off that road. But it is a convenience for people of North Hammond that they utilize that to get to Hegwish versus going to Gosselin or going all the way up to the boulevard. I mean, those are your only 2 options, right? I mean, there's nothing between Gosselin and the boulevard that I know of that goes to Illinois. Is that fair? Okay. So, there is a convenience factor here for their customers as well, because it is located there. I think that if the board would grant this exception, that the information that Mr. Farrell put forth would be something that really needs to be addressed, especially that side kind of like open area gravel, quote unquote access or road. I think that needs to be addressed pretty quickly. I think Sergeant Godey said, and I appreciate his testimony, indicating that Luke's is going to upgrade the cameras. He also indicated kind of the importance of this location from a camera perspective for the police department. So, looking at the factors, I guess, I've talked about safety and security. You have Exhibit 1. They're already on Fusus. We talked about adequate security presence overnight, including safety of the employees. We talked about what kind of area it's in. It's in kind of this like no man's land. It's in between, I would characterize it as. I would not say it's easily accessible by interstate travelers. It's not near a highway. However, it is near the state line, and as Mr. Fife testified, the traffic there seems to be neighborhood or people going to and from work. Ordinance violations, there have been minimal. It sounds like there are things that can be addressed. It also has adequate lighting, and it is properly licensed. So I would leave it to the board's discretion on this one, and thank you for allowing me to present.
Thank you for your presentations today. The board will now take this matter under advisement. The board will notify the petitioner in writing of its ruling by regular certified and electronic mail within 10 days of this hearing. If an exception is granted, it shall be valid for 1 year from the date of determination and is subject to revocation if any circumstances change. Additionally, you must reapply for the exception annually if it's granted. Thank you. Okay, we're going to close letter B and move on to letter C, Luke's, 850 Indianapolis Boulevard. And again, I'm going to read the opening statement. Good morning. The next matter before the board is a request for an exception to Section F of Ordinance 9605, brought by the petitioner Luke's. The petitioner has requested that the fueling station located at 850 Indianapolis Boulevard be excluded from the requirement within the city of Hammond that fueling stations be closed from midnight to 5 a.m. I would like to first determine whether or not proper notice has been given to the neighboring property owners by the petitioner. The requirement is that the petitioner give notice of today's hearing to all properties located within 300 feet of the petitioner's property line. And Linda, did that happen? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Fife, you again will be the only person testifying on your behalf?
Yes.
Okay, you may, as a petitioner, you have the ability to now present to the board your rationale as to why you believe your fueling station should be allowed the exception. As you know, there are several factors in the ordinance that the board will consider and weigh in making the determination. I would ask you to be aware of those factors and to present your argument and evidence today with those factors in mind. And I will remind everybody, Mr. Fife has already been sworn in. Go ahead, Mr. Fife.
Thank you once again.
You're welcome.
So Luke's 255, located at 850 Indianapolis Boulevard. That's our biggest gas station built. Consider that our flagship store. It is a high-traffic area, so I'm sure the call volume is semi, to where we have, probably not as many as some of the others, or definitely not 240, but we do have 23 that I have recorded thus far that have actually needed police involvement or video that was needed. As far as the Fuchsia's program, those cameras were ordered yesterday by our IT department through the Hammond Blue Network.org. And then I spoke with Sergeant Godey last week when we were here on the recommendations as far as which model we were to order. So we ordered the ones that he recommended. Adequate security, again, it's one of our larger stores, so sometimes it's 2 to 3 employees behind glass. They also have the mag locks on the doors. We have a car wash that's attached to the building, so we have 25 cameras that are located around the whole premise. In the foyer of our station, we have 4 TV monitors. So I'm sure that you'll see from code enforcement that our cashiers can't really see from the windows because they are blocked, but they can see the monitors of the gas pumps from where they stand. And any customer that comes into our store can see themselves on TV as well. Employees behind the glass, we have panic buttons throughout the building, again with the mag doors on the front doors so they can lock themselves in if they need to go onto the floor. As far as residential commercial, I think that's a commercial area. Again, I sent out 12 certified letters to businesses and LLCs. It is off the toll road and right before the Skyway. As far as city ordinances, I have been contacted by code enforcement, work really well with them. Usually that area was about brush and graffiti that we addressed right away. Last week's recommendation of the container at our gas station at 236, that has since been removed as of yesterday. So as far as your recommendations go, we get on top of it right away. Adequate lighting, we do have lighting around the whole building, LED. Licenses, again, with the minor issues from the health department, we'll get that taken care of. And then any other relevant factors for this one, I would just say that up in the North District of Hammond, we have 2 other gas stations that we haven't petitioned to stay open. One of those gas stations is by the Horseshoe Casino, and we have a house account there for the Skyway Maintenance Department. So if this is granted a license to stay open past the hours, we would then transfer over that house account to this location so they can service their vehicles there. And then that's it. It's a lot of traffic. We do see a lot of to and work people during that hour going on to the Skyway or the toll road. And definitely the casino being within that vicinity, we see a lot of traffic due to the casino. And that inside is open 24 hours.
Before I ask Mr. Smith, what was the business name you said you service at the other station?
Yeah, is that for the Skyway?
Skyway?
Skyway.
Oh,
Skyway?
So it's the Skyway their
maintenance people?
maintenance department.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That has a house account at another location that we
Gotcha.
didn't petition to stay open.
Okay. Does the city have any questions for Mr. Fife?
Yeah, I just want to understand that a little better. So this location is almost to the Illinois state line, correct?
Yes.
And it's on the, I guess I'd consider it the south end of Indianapolis Boulevard, south side of the boulevard, I guess, is that south?
Yes.
Yeah, south,
Yes.
Southwest.
Southwest.
South, yeah.
Yeah.
So could you explain this house account for Skyway and how that's going to work if this exception's granted or denied or?
So if they need their vehicle service, they come in there, they have a number that's registered to them, they fill up, just give that number, and then we bill the Skyway at a later date.
I got you. So house account just means they don't have to pay every time.
Correct.
They just punch in their number.
Yes, we do that for police departments, railroads. They just, if they're not by their fuel stations, they're able to come to our fuel station, fuel up, and then we bill them.
And that occurs at the 850 location or it occurs at another one?
Another location that we're not petitioning to stay open.
All right, so in other words, the house account will be transferred to 850?
Yes.
If this gets granted, that's the goal?
Yes.
Okay, so question, we have again, NH Vegas LLC is the property owner?
Yes.
And then, but the operational owner is Gateway Triangle Corp., DBA Loop 255?
Yes.
Okay. been kind of like a issue that I was wondering about, and I think it can become a safety issue. The old gas station with kind of that building that exists like in the rear.
Yes.
It's vacant. I would consider it probably subject to demolition under the Unsafe Building Act. But of course, I think because of the relationship we have with Luke's, we're trying to find out what the plan is there. Do you know if the plan is to knock that down or to do something else with it?
Yes, so I've been in contact with Christopher Pajek from Code Enforcement. We did discuss that. I guess our Economic Development Director, Dan Tersman, has been in contact with Phil Talon about that property. They've got some plans that they are in discussions with. So I don't know anything further other than that.
Okay.
I guess if it doesn't pan out, then yes, it will be demolished.
And there is a tenant, I believe, TU Taco.
Yes.
Do you know if they have a business license?
That's under our gas station, and that's our food offering.
So it's not a separate company?
It is not a separate company.
That's what I needed to know. Okay, so not.
It's just a food offering that we have in the gas station.
Gotcha.
And is that self-serve, or is it employee there separate from the 2 to 3 employees that you indicated?
Not on, they don't sell during the midnight, only during operating hours.
Only
And
during
that is,
operating hours?
yes, normal business hours, I should say,
Okay.
not at midnight.
So they have kind of a regular, like whatever it is, noon to 10 or
Yes.
something like that type of?
Probably like,
arrangement.
yes,
So not during the overnight hours?
correct.
That's all I have for Mr. Fife.
Does the board have anything for Mr. Fife?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further evidence, I will now let the city present their case regarding the exception. So go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I'd like to present Exhibit 1 to the board, which is the call log at this location.
Thank you.
Jeff, I think I might have given you my copy. So, as Mr. Fife indicated, this location is along the toll road. As we've discovered with other locations up in this area, there is increased incidence of calls for various reasons. I would mention that at this location, there has been some matters of concern, although there have not been any violent incidents at this location for at least as I can tell, for a good 18 months to 24 months. There was a carjacking on June 8th of 22 that I noticed, and that I think was, if I'm not mistaken, the last violent incident at the store. So I'd ask Sergeant Godey to please come up and give a summary of his review of the security system and any other thing you'd like to talk about regarding safety and security at this location.
Okay, and I'll remind everyone again that Mr. Godey's been sworn in.
Sergeant Godey, did you have occasion to go to 850 Indianapolis Boulevard, also known as 10850 Indianapolis Boulevard, to review the safety and security systems at this location?
Yes.
And could you please describe to the board what you saw?
Sure. As Mr. Fife indicated, the new LED lights are in place. It is a very large gas station. I think there's almost 40, if not more than 40 pumps up there. We have talked about what equipment they need to purchase from Fusus. I got the order confirmation. If a commercial location buys a core from Fusus, we're copied on that. We did get that, so they have purchased them. And I think this location has 25 cameras, and they're going to bring them all onto Fusus when the equipment gets delivered.
Do you believe that would be an advantage from a security standpoint for the city and its residents?
Yes,
As far as lighting goes at this location, do you believe it's adequate?
yes.
And in the past, are you familiar with their current camera system at that location?
Yes.
And in the past, have you had occasion to have a request in to look at that system for investigations of any criminal activity?
Yes.
And have you received cooperation from Luke's in that regard?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any further questions of Sergeant Godey. I'm sorry, Sergeant Godey, anything else you'd like to add on this location?
No, other than, as with the other sites, Luke's is always proactive. Sometimes they send us things before we know about it. At this location, Mr. Fife had a serial graffiti artist and sent us the information so we could work on it before, it got to be too big of a problem. We were able to charge the guy and find out that he was doing other things that were not just in his gas station. They were also tagging commercial businesses and residences, and we were able to tie all that together based upon their tip.
Thank you, Sergeant Cody. Any other questions?
Mr. Fife, do you have anything for Sergeant Cody? Does the board?
No.
Sergeant Cody, you're free to leave if you wish.
The next thing we'd like to present to the board is Exhibits 2, 3, and 4. And also request that Mr. Farrell testify as to these exhibits. Let me make sure to give Mr. Fife a copy right now.
Okay, and I'll remind everyone again that Mr. Farrell has been sworn in.
Okay, Mr. Farrell, did you have occasion to meet with Mr. Novak regarding his report, which is Exhibit 2, and did you create your report, which is Exhibit 3?
I have.
And are you familiar with this location located at the 50 Indianapolis Boulevard?
I am.
Okay, do you first want to indicate the issue that you believe is there an issue with the address or no?
So what I noticed through the research of the business license database was that historically, the business licenses were issued and maintained from 2005 through 2023. However, the license renewal for 2017 changed from being issued under the address of 850 Indianapolis Boulevard, which is the legitimate address recognized by Lake County records, and was issued under 10850 Indianapolis Boulevard, which that is not a legitimate address recognized by Lake County. So I'm unsure as to why that change was made or accepted, but the business licenses from 2017 through 2023 have been issued under the incorrect address.
Yeah, so it's just it may be internal, we're gonna look into that. So as far as the potential zoning violations and others, did you get a chance to look at Tom's report?
I did.
And did you notice that he indicated that signage was blocking more than 25% on a few of the window panes?
Yes.
He also pointed out some issues with, I did want to point out to the board that this location, you could see that the dumpster
Yeah, that's a
is
good one.
enclosed, which is great. It's like, that's kind of what we're hoping ends up taking place on, at Boy Scout Road location, so. And would you characterize the other violations here as pretty minor?
Yes, things that could easily be taken care of with, the only exception being that rear building, which is the old car wash, actually. So for some reason, when they went to rebuild the new station, they knocked down and demolished the existing station, but left the car wash there, and it's been vacant, boarded up. Chris has indicated there have been some issues with overgrowth and weeds. So in this year, there was an abatement notice posted, and then a citation had to be issued afterwards, but Chris did work with Mr. Fife, and they eventually did get the weeds cut down. But we're concerned because vacant, boarded up buildings, especially at night, attract, people to, visit. And in Mr. Novak's photos provided, you could see there is a vehicle that is parked and off towards the rear of the property there where the vacant building is situated. So that would be our main concerns, if we can just ensure that we have a plan that's either move forward to, reutilize the existing structure and convert it from a, car wash facility to something else, or storage for the gas station, but I'm not sure if any lighting is currently affixed to the area, but it's definitely something that would be attracting, most likely individuals that aren't wanted back there.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Farrell.
Mr. Fife, do you have any questions for Mr. Farrell? Does the board have any questions for Mr. Farrell? Mr. Farrell, you're free to leave if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, city arrests.
It's okay. Okay, if the city has no further evidence, petitioner has the opportunity to present any further testimony or evidence they'd like to present And Mr. Fife, I'd like to remind you, we'd like to keep that at 5 minutes or less if you wish to speak. Okay, then we will then let the city.
Thank you to the board. Just in summary, looking at the factors, incidents of criminal acts and police calls over the last 5 years with emphasis on the last 24 months. You have Exhibit 1. I would say that given the location, it doesn't appear to be extraordinary of police calls or incidents. I would note that a lot of it is extra patrol, and if extra patrols are being called in by the location, there's a bit of a concern there just because it's so far out of and away from neighborhoods. It's bringing patrols out that way. But outside of that, I don't see any violent incidents that cause any concern outside of the one carjacking that was in about a year and a half ago. In June of '22, that's correct. The next factors, of course, are whether it's part of the FUSIS program. It sounds like it's no, but it's going to be yes very soon, which is great. Adequate security presence at night. It looks like there is bulletproof glass, mag locks. I would also mention, as the factor goes to lighting, as Mr. Farrell pointed out, that it sounds like they have adequate lighting at the station, but if there, and I don't know the answer to this, but if there's not adequate lighting in the rear of the building where that vacant, and you know, it always helps if a police officer's driving by and there's lighting out there, if lighting's gonna help him or her see what's going on there. Right. And I would encourage, as a condition of any exception here, that there be adequate lighting in the rear of the facility near that vacant structure while we're trying to figure out what's gonna happen to that. And it sounds like the city administration is dealing with Luke's for a solution on that property. It's definitely not in a residential area. It's more commercial, I would call it. It's also along the highway, in which it's easily accessible by interstate travelers. In fact, it's right off the exit. I also think it also has the ability to attract folks from the casino to and from, and obviously that's an important economic driver of our city. So to have this convenience, I would say, weighs in favor of granting the exception. Ordinance violations and licensing doesn't seem to be a problem. There's some minor stuff that I'm sure can be corrected easily, and so I think those factors also weigh in favor of granting. And business license, they're properly licensed, and I appreciate Mr. Fife clarifying the issue with the taco place. It sounds like it's part of their operation, so that's good to know. That's all I have, and I would ask the board to rely on the evidence that was presented to it by both the city and Mr. Fife. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you for your presentations today. The board will now take this matter under advisement. The board will notify the petitioner in writing of its ruling by regular, certified, and electronic mail within 10 days of this hearing. If an exception is granted, it shall be valid for 1 year from the date of the termination and is subject to revocation if any circumstances change. Additionally, you must reapply for the exception annually if it is granted. Mr. Fife, thank you. Okay, the meeting is now open to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak? You can come up. You can't really ask a question about the hearing. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.